And welcome to the Cedar Falls Regular City Council meeting this March 4th, 2019. I'll now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz.
Here.
Blanford.
Here.
Dara.
Here.
Wieland. Wieland.
Unmute. I ask him to unmute.
Councilmember Wieland, can you unmute?
Did you join them together?
Councilmember Wieland, are you there? Green.
Here.
Councilmember Wieland, I don't know if he's absent or present yet.
I don't know either. Any text?
Dave's trying to call me back.
Okay, will you answer that just so we can,
Hi, Dave. Did you get disconnected?
technology.
Okay. Okay, we'll give you a call back. Thanks.
We need to call him back. We can give that a shot here real quick if folks would be patient with us.
Okay, Daryl, I'm going to put you on hold, okay?
Okay.
Live TV, folks.
Hello.
All right, David, we're going to connect you. Okay, are you both there?
I'm here. Hello. Dave here. And Daryl's here.
All right, all members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 1, is there a motion to approve the regular minutes of February 18th?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
I have no agenda revisions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to the special order of business. Item 2 is a public hearing and a proposal to undertake a public improvement project for the Ridgeway Avenue Reconstruction Project and to authorize acquisition of private property for said project. Is there a motion to receive, file proof of publication, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Any written communication filed with the city clerk?
I have no written communications on file, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before we open up for public comments, I believe we have Chase here to give a brief description on this public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. This public hearing tonight is for the acquisition of private property for Phase 1 of Ridgeway Avenue improvements. This is the first of 2 phases along the corridor there. As you can see on that drawing there, that red line to the north of the, excuse me, that north of the roundabout represents fee title acquisition, and the yellow dotted line represents temporary construction easement. If there are any questions regarding the proposed acquisition or the project as a whole, I'd be more than happy to entertain those.
Council, towards Chase on this? We'll open it back up here in a moment, too. Anyone from the public here to speak on the public portion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll declare the hearing closed. Item 3 is a resolution approving a public improvement for the Ridgeway Avenue Reconstruction Project. Is there a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please. Councilman Cruz or Wieland?
I approve.
Dave was disconnected again.
Dave get disconnected again? Best way in terms of this vote?
He's absent right now.
Absent? He's absent right now, right. Do we need to inquire on that with his machine? Pardon me? There we go.
6 voting aye, 1 abstention, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That motion does pass. I would beg council's permission here to try to get Mr. Wieland back on. When council people are gone, they require a request to be on for the meeting. So we'll try this again with Councilman Wieland. If we ever tried a cell phone Skype or something where folks can at least hear, or have we ever tried that before? Go ahead and try them again, Jake. We'll try and see if it's...
Daryl, you're going to go on hold again.
Okay.
I'm gonna go outside.
Hello.
Hello, Dave. Welcome back.
Hello.
Okay, can you both hear me now?
I'm here. Connected.
Can you ask Mr. Whelan if it's possible to get a landline? Or is it us that's he's missing, or is it
Hello?
cell phone?
Talk to him.
I can hear you, Dave. Can you hear me?
We're good, Mr.
I can hear you fine, thank you.
I mean, unless you want me to try to just get them on with my cell phone, Mayor.
Let's try it one more time this way and see where we land, and then maybe we'll do the cell phone. Thanks for your indulgence, everybody. Moving on to old business, item 4 is Pass Ordinance 2936, amending Chapter 29 zoning of the Code of Ordinances relative to the College Hill Neighborhood Overlay Zoning District upon its second consideration. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion and second. I will open up for council comment.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Green?
during the last meeting, when we had a regular session and discussed this, there's quite a bit of discussion that we had and a lot of information going back and forth. One of the things that I regret in the last session was not voting to table this motion for a couple of reasons. With this, the parking study that we just had approved on Wednesday, I didn't realize at the time that we'd be able to move a parking study forward so quickly. And I have concerns now that by pushing forward with this vote, we're going to be creating a limited window of opportunity for one project, potentially at the expense of others, before we get this parking study done. And so by voting now to approve this and to continue it forward, I think it just wouldn't be wise in light of the fact that we'll have additional data available just in a few months. So again, I regret not tabling it before. I don't see that we have an option for that now since it's on the second consideration. So that's why I would look to change mine to a no vote, but then also to encourage my fellow council members to do the same, and then to pick this up again once the parking study is complete.
Thank you. Any further comments by council?
We did have
Blanford.
2 formal requests that I think should at least be brought to council. I think we all received one request which had to do with reducing the size or the scope of the application of the zoning law, and then I had a second one, I'm not sure if it went to everyone, requesting the addition of a sunset clause, which would basically put a timetable on this change, so it would be in effect till October 1st and November 1st, what have you, and then rediscuss after the parking study. So like I said, I don't know if those went to all of us, but I don't know if we need to at least discuss them since they were formally sent to council.
Thank you. Any further comments? Any further comments from Councilman Cruz or Wieland?
Aye.
Not voting, Mr. Wieland. Any further comments?
Could you paraphrase what Tom said because I couldn't hear it? It was in and out. I'm saying yes.
Sorry, Councilman Cruz, is that better?
There you go. Now
Yes,
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you a lot better now.
We both had, or I think some of council had received 2 requests from the public. One was a restriction on the zoning changes to a smaller section of the College Hill area, just the commercial district. And the second request was to place a sunset clause, essentially, or a timetable on the changes, so they would be in effect for a certain period of time to allow for the parking study and then be brought back up for consideration either later this year or the first part of next year. So I at least wanted to make sure those were in front of council since they were both formal requests.
Okay, can you elaborate on the sunset clause? The mechanics of that?
I think or at least the information I received basically would allow council to put a timetable on the zoning change. So we would say we approve them and they're in effect for 6 months or until November 1st or what have you, to allow time for the parking study and for council review. And then it would essentially force the discussion, basically, so it would bring it back before council at a specified date for us to rediscuss the zoning changes, I think was the essence of their request, if I understood it correctly.
Okay. Okay.
Any further discussion from council on the second consideration? Mr. Green?
Mr. Mayor, just on the idea of the sunset clause for this, I would see that as almost codifying an interim ordinance. And when I first saw the information that came to us, and it had been kind of termed a Band-Aid measure, I was looking at that as a like a surgical change to the ordinances to fix one part of it until we could get other ordinances dealt with as well. So I was fine with having that Band-Aid in place as something to take care of one small part. But what I'm getting the sense of is that as a Band-Aid measure, as an interim measure, it's not meant to fix one part. It's meant to temporarily fix something, and then to have the idea that we're going to probably go back and relook at it later and change it, again, opens up that limited window of opportunity that benefits, I feel, just one party, and then potentially at the expense of others. So I can't get on board with that.
Any further comment by council?
If I may,
Yes.
if you can hear me.
Yes. That would be fine.
I have a concern where we're saying that structures built before a certain date become legal nonconforming. And my comment would be, if a structure is not conforming now, it can never become legal nonconforming. So the language that's in there regarding that would not be necessary, because anything that's in existence that's conforming now or in decades past automatically becomes legal nonconforming. So that doesn't need to be stated. And something that's not properly built can never become legal nonconforming.
Thank you. Anything further from council? I will open it up to the public. I know some folks were here. If you want to come up and speak for 5 minutes on this particular topic on the second consideration, please come forward. I will ask to make sure that microphone's right there for the folks on the phone. And
I'll yell. Ishan Vajpayee, 3831 Convair Lane, Cedar Falls, Iowa. As most people know, I represent Dr. Sires in sharing views on this situation, but I've also, over the course of the period of time this has been considered, to a certain extent, I've been able to speak with other stakeholders on this topic. And I was the one that proposed limiting this ordinance change to just the commercial districts within the College Hill overlay neighborhood. As people know, College Hill overlay neighborhood includes commercial districts and residential districts. I think it's most appropriate to limit this parking change that allows the highest density residential development and commercial development to districts that are suited for the highest density. I mean, really what we're talking about, and I sent a letter to everybody, is College Hill really is, to my mind, a mixed-use district. And we just heard from staff about how in a mixed-use district you want to buffer the highest density development with a medium density range and buffer that from the lowest density. So north of Quick Star on the hill, you do have some lower density housing. You have some single family housing. And the way the ordinance is written now, and I don't know if everyone realizes this, you are going to have these lower parking requirements all the way north to the north edge of the College Hill neighborhood, which includes residential zones and could possibly allow for incredibly dense development right up north into the old Price Lab, Northern University neighborhood. And I don't know that that's what was intended. So I think that restricting it to the C districts, commercial districts, allows the densest development to be where it belongs. It does several other things. It doesn't limit development. If a surrounding residential zone adjacent to that C3 wants to rezone to commercial because that's the appropriate move at that time, they can do that. If it's supported by the neighborhood, it can happen. Then that highest density use can occur. And then the other thing it does, going to Councilman Green's point, is that if you're not going to wait for the downtown or the College Hill parking study, this can be a way of future-proofing this ordinance and not having to revisit this specific aspect of College Hill parking after the College Hill parking study comes out, because it will allow for growth. If this parking requirement is appropriate further north or to the east, then rezoning can occur. Really, in my aspect, it's a win-win. It allows for the densest development sought in those areas where it's appropriate. It allows for the 2119 College building to be built right now. So I kind of challenge people to state, well, what's there not to like about this? No stakeholder I've talked to is pushing these parking requirements into the residential zones. I think they'd be more than happy to be able to rezone and get the parking requirement at that point. For those of you who are still opposed to the ordinance due to other concerns like immunizing problematic developments like urban flats, I encourage you to at least support the amendment. Vote yes on the amendment. And then if you still feel strongly about opposing the ordinance as a whole, or if the amendment fails, you can vote no against the ordinance, I think. You can vote no against the ordinance, but still have voted yes for the amendment, and then at least this is limited to where it should be limited to. And I would just have to say that, in my opinion, if the amendment fails and there's still great support for this ordinance, it really does go to show what the true intent of this ordinance is. If this amendment is not seen as acceptable, but the ordinance must go through, and then we're going to revisit it with a sunset clause after the College Hill parking study, it's completely disrobing the true intent of this ordinance, which is to allow one building to be built. And that's not how, in my opinion, government should operate, to pass laws to benefit one person, one development for a limited period of time, and then switch the rules when that pet project is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone further to speak on this?
Catherine Sogard, 330 Columbia Circle over in Waterloo. I'm the executive director of the College Hill Partnership. First of all, I want to thank you all for approving the parking study. The partnership requested it a while back, and they're really excited that that is going to be going through. I think with this code ordinance, the partnership feels that clarifying some of the ambiguous language is really important. It's important for you guys to understand how we need to go forward. It's important for developers so they know what's required of them. And it's important for the general public so we also know what's required to go through planning and zoning and to be accepted by city council. So I think city staff has worked really hard because there has been some confusion in planning and zoning, in city council, in everyday conversations at the partnership with the current ordinance. So I think making sure that the ordinance is changed is very important. I think also, that's what we need to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I will open it back up for council. Any more questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, just for a point of clarification, what was suggested for tonight as an option was to amend what we're considering tonight. But as I understand, that's not an option, correct?
Excuse me, could you please speak into the microphone so I can hear here?
We all have to do that tonight.
So my question was, with the ordinance that is on the table tonight for second consideration, is it not an option for us to amend this?
It is an option. Now, I'll add further that the amendment just discussed would be substantial enough that we would have to start the process over with the ordinance.
When you say start it over, Kevin, is that just council or is that P&Z as well?
I haven't studied whether it has to go all the way back to P&Z, but this wouldn't be even the first reading of the ordinance. we'd have to publish notice of the hearing and all that. I haven't studied whether it has to go all the way back to P and Z yet, but it would not constitute second reading of this ordinance if it's amended in the fashion that's been discussed so far.
Kevin, I'm losing you. Can you speak in the mic?
Sure.
Yes.
This amendment would be a substantial change to the ordinance, so approval of this amendment would not constitute a second reading of the ordinance. We would have to start over with published notice at council at least, and perhaps a referral back to Planning and Zoning Commission.
And just to be clear, there is no amendment on the table presently.
I haven't heard a motion to amend,
Correct.
Mr. Mayor.
Any further comments?
Right now we're at public comment, or is that closed?
That's closed. If you have a comment, Councilman Cruz, you're up if you need to, sir.
Well, if it's an option, I would like to make the motion to amend this so that it just applies to the C3.
Second.
There's been a motion to amend this ordinance to apply only to the C3. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry.
Who was that?
Who was that aye?
Cruz?
Me?
Nay.
Daryl Cruz, aye.
For the gentleman on the phone, there is a motion and a second to amend this ordinance to strictly apply to the C3 at this point. There's been a motion and a second, and I'll ask again, all those in favor say aye.
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 I'm included in that as well.
Okay, so we have how many aye votes, please? 1, 2, Mr. Cruz,
4.
Yes.
Mr. Green, and 3 nays. That motion does carry.
Just for clarification, I thought I heard both those gentlemen say they approved that. Was that not accurate?
Dave said no.
Okay.
Right. We are fine on this now, moving forward, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar, the following items will be acted upon by a voice vote in a single motion without separate discussion. Unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be polled for such discussion, any such requests on the consent calendar by council? By the public? Hearing and seeing none, I will give a brief overview of the consent calendar. Item 5 is approving the following recommendations of the mayor relative to appointing Mr. Mark Miller and Mr. Gerald Sorensen to the Board of Adjustment. Item 6 is receive and file the committee of the whole minutes of February 18th relative to the 2 board adjustment interviews, the downtown parking study presentation, and bills and payroll. Item 7 is receive and file monthly reports of January 2019. Item 8 is approve a request for a street closure. Item 9 is approve and authorize execution of an order accepting acknowledgement settlement agreement. And item 10 is approving applications for permits and licenses. Is there a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion by council? All those in favor say aye.
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 Mr. Whelan?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a resolution calendar. The following items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion, unless someone from the council or public requests an item to be polled for such consideration. Any such requests from council?
18.
18,
17 and 21.
17, and 21.
Number 13, Mr. Mayor.
Number 13. Anyone further from council? Anyone from the public that hasn't been already polled? Hearing and seeing none, I'll summarize the items less those items that are polled. Item 11 is approving and authorizing execution of an amendment for long-term disability insurance. 12 is approving and authorizing execution of a subscription renewal agreement relative to callback software. Item 14 is approving and authorizing execution of a lease agreement with Blackhawk County Solid Waste Management Commission relative to the use of city-owned property. 15 is approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase of a sewer cleaning apparatus. 16 is approving and authorizing execution of an owner purchase agreement, receiving reports, notices, and time for appeal in conjunction with the West First Street reconstruction project. 19 is approving execution of supplemental agreement with Intercog relative to CDBG funding. Item 20 is a resolution setting March 18th as the date of public hearing to consider adoption of the city's code of ordinances. 22 is a resolution setting March 18th as the date of public hearing to consider entering into a proposed agreement for private development. 23 is a resolution setting March 18th as the date of public hearing to consider entering into a proposed agreement for private development and payment of certain economic development grants. Is there a motion to approve the resolution calendar minus those items polled, please?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Requires a roll call vote, please.
Cruz votes aye.
Whelan, aye.
Wieland, aye.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving up to item 13, it reads a resolution approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase and installation of cameras and lighting in the College Hill area. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion from council? Mr.
Hoping Director Olson could give us a quick update on some of the steps we're taking to increase safety on the Hill.
Certainly. So we've met with the College Hill Association and merchants. We've also met separately with the bar owners. We've met with downtown merchants and bar owners as well to discuss, safety, primarily after dark in those areas of the town. And due to some of the incidents we've had, particularly on the College Hill, we've been studying some of the best ways to handle that. And one thing we've done is we've increased the police patrol during certain times of the week significantly to deal with that. And we've also got a request in front of you for the replacement and addition of some cameras and some replacement of some lighting to increase lighting in certain areas. These cameras have some significant capabilities above what we currently have, and some of it will even include the tracking, if necessary, of suspected problem people. So it's a significantly clearer, higher quality camera, which we hope can help. Some of the cameras we've had in the Hill and the downtown in the past are many years old, and just when you go to view them, you just have a small image of an individual on the screen, and it just wasn't helping us to identify individuals that committed crimes in those areas. So this request is for the College Hill, and the next request you'll probably see coming in a few months would be for the downtown area.
Thank you, Director. Anyone further discussion? It's been motioned second on the table. It requires a roll call vote, please.
Cruz votes aye.
Whelan, aye.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 17, it reads a resolution approving and accepting a lien notice and special promissory note relative to the rental to single-family owner conversion incentive program. Is there a motion, please?
Moved.
Second.
Motion second. Open up for council comments.
If I may, I just had a question for staff on that. I was reading through the council packet, and it doesn't appear, it seemed like on all the rest of these we've gotten, there's an official bid from a licensed contractor, and this one didn't appear to have that. And I didn't know if that was a requirement for this program or not.
So technically it is not, but the applicant who applied, he is kind of a contractor on his own, so he is proposing to do the work himself. He did go to Menards and to other stores and provided a list of the materials he would need, and that came out to be close to the amount. And then with the labor he calculated, it would be well above the minimum requirement.
That was my only question.
Great. Anything further from council? It's been motioned second. It's on the table. This requires a roll call vote, please.
Cruz votes aye.
Mr. Whelan?
Yes.
Is that an aye? I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 18, it reads a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Green Hill Village Townhomes Number 2. Is there a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion second. Open it up for discussion with council, if any. We'll open it up for the public. Does anyone have some comments? There's some folks here. I see a gentleman coming. Make sure it's right at the mic, if you would, please, as you all know.
Chris Nolan, 1510 Athens Court. Just wanted to bring everybody up to date. I'm the one that's been flooding your emails here the last few days, trying to get your attention to what's going on. I'll be real brief and give you what I consider the cliff notes to what's going on. In March of 2018, P&Z approved a request by Panther Builders to amend the master plan to Green Hill Village and to increase density. The approval was sent to the City Council and approved. No one appeared at either meeting to protest. A letter was sent out by staff March 18, 2018, but was not received by several residents. We have taken the time and signed affidavit stating that 45 residents of the 39 mailing addresses swore that they did not receive that notice. We have received city notices for other developments and have had a reasonable expectation for that to continue. To compound things further, 33% of the development that we're speaking about today was listed as R1 on the county website. The city staff said that that's been wrong since 1998. I've been watching that site for many years, knowing that we should be notified for any rezoning change. We attended the last two P&Z meetings to voice our concerns with several residents present, but found that it was too late for P&Z to help us. We felt that any plans to change the Green Hill Village master plan should include the residents of Green Hill Village. The subject of adding density has come up several times, so I'd like to speak to that. We have 168 two-bedroom apartments and 102 condos and 184 freestanding homes for a total of 450. This should meet or exceed any density at neighboring subdivisions at Prairie Winds and the Meadows. We don't need a great deal more density in our subdivision. Here's the crux of it. These circumstances have put the developer and the residents in an unfortunate situation. Neither party should be made to bear the full burden. We are asking that you vote no to the preliminary plot and have the parties work out a compromise. I know the vote has a time frame, but I believe if we come together, we can make it work.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Anyone further from the public to comment? Thanks.
Hi, my name is Naren Gunasekara. I live in 1518 Athens Court in Cedar Falls. I'm going to read this out because my wife says I get emotional when I talk. But I want to just add to what Chris Nolan said. The first thing is that I agree with him that the due process was violated because there is expectation that the city informs public before rezoning is done. And among the 40-odd affidavits that we have, 8 are from school teachers. And if all these teachers are lying, then I think we have a much bigger problem in Cedar Falls than this development. So Green Hill Village basically is a middle-class neighborhood that consists of, as I said, teachers, police officers, mid-level engineers. And these are the folks who basically constitute the backbone of the society. And as far as single-family housing goes, this is actually high density, and we live close to each other. And quite frankly, we enjoy each other's companies. We visit, we see the kids play. So we are a tight, closely knit neighborhood. And this is going to change if you have a high throughput traffic going through this. And one of the things that's going to happen is that the people with kids, and there are a lot of people, will just start to move. And that will lead to the gradual degradation of the neighborhood. And the property values will fall, so the tax base of the city also will be reduced. And so overall, just strictly in terms of finances, this is not necessarily going to contribute to that as well. Honestly, I think the days where any development is considered to be good is gone, or at least numbered. Because there is a growing public perception against deep-pocketed financiers who will come in, who have prospered during these tax breaks of the recent past, who will come in into the neighborhoods and basically ride roughshod over the neighborhoods. You saw a dramatic example of that in New York City, where the much fancied Amazon HQ2 was ultimately, that project failed because of the citizens. So, but actually citizen participation is not new to Cedar Falls. It actually happened about 20 years ago on this very parcel of land where Walmart wanted to come and establish their store. And due to citizen participation, they actually moved out into the far south, I guess east corner of the city, which was not developed at that time. And actually there were two important things that happened as a result. One, as you all know, is now that area is a thriving commercial hub with lots of stores coming in. And the second thing is that this southern area, which was, I guess, designated as industrial, now the housing in the south has boomed. And for example, the new elementary school was established there as a result of the population drifting in that way. So two really beneficial things came out of these citizens' actions. So I urge you to consider these appeals of these citizens. And I guess my final point is that I think the City Council just cannot let the future of Cedar Falls be determined by the volunteers that serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm sure they all love Cedar Falls, but I know that at least some of them do have commercial interests. And so as our representatives, the City Council members, I urge you to pay greater attention to these rezoning plans that come up, not only for this development, but also for these other developments.
Excuse me for interrupting, but right now I'm having a hard time hearing the conversation.
Okay,
I'll have him speak in the microphone, Councilman Whelan.
Okay, I'm sorry,
Thank
I'm
you.
almost done. But my final point is that, I came here 13 years ago, and I really love Cedar Falls. And I can also contrast it with other cities here. My son plays soccer for the past 10 years, and I have pretty much stayed in every hotel from Des Moines to West Des Moines. And you can see that nameless, faceless suburbia from Johnston, Urbandale, Grimes. They have no character, which Cedar Falls has. And I hope you work towards preserving what we have and treasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone further to speak on this? And again, right in the microphone, please, if you would, please.
Christine Tognetti, 1509 Andover Court. I am one of those teachers that did not receive the notice in the mail last March. I would just like to plead with you that it's pretty unlikely that there are that many people in our neighborhood that did not get that mailing. We're not sure what happened, but there's so many people that did not receive it. It's very unlikely. Also, I'm not speaking as a teacher, I'm speaking as a mom, and just really pleading with you, this is going to change the neighborhood for my two kids. We live on the corner of Andover and Addison, and there's going to be so much traffic coming through. And with rentals and college kids, I love college kids, I'm a teacher, but it does change the dynamic of our neighborhood dramatically for little elementary kids that are used to being outside with just parents standing there, and they're going from cul-de-sac to cul-de-sac, and our neighbors know to slow down, and they know the dynamic, and it's just going to change with that high density. And so I guess I just wanted to add to that from a mom's point of view.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There's a gentleman over here, too.
Tim Jarks, 1521 Athens Court. Just want to make a few comments here, and I'm probably going to reiterate a few things, but yeah, the letters that were sent out back in March 2018 in regards to amending, and this is basically what happened. The original master plan was changed, and that letter was supposedly sent out that many people did not get. In fact, none did. I find it also interesting that the county website is also incorrect in showing the zoning for this area that we're discussing. I just find both of those situations to be, I'm confused. You know, it's questionable what's going on here. And I think you got to ask yourself as council people, what did happen here? Where did the letters go? Why is the county, it's 20 years, it's been wrong? But yet there are maps that I have, that shows this particular area with single-family homes, okay? So I would ask the plan and the proposed development be revised to that single-family homes, particularly along the west side, which borders homes that are existing, and also along the south side, which also borders existing homes. These homes, these multifamily homes that will be built will be 4-bedroom homes. And at the price range that they're going to be in, there's a pretty good idea what's going to end up there. And with 4 bedrooms, 8 people, and this is going to be literally right next to me. So this will affect property values. It will affect our lifestyle. So putting in single family, that's between us and the proposed development for part of it, would at least give us a buffer between what's proposed and where we're at. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone further?
Hi there, good evening. Steve Trosky with CGA Engineers, and with me tonight are the owner's representatives, legal representatives, and engineering staff.
Right to the microphone, please. I'm real sorry.
Sorry about that.
No,
Yeah, I
it's
should have
okay.
picked that
Thank
up
you.
by now. So with me, we've got engineering staff, legal staff, and owner's representation. So we're seeking a preliminary plat at this point. It's for 1 lot for 2 buildings. All the city standards, codes, and provisions up to this point have been met. So we are asking for that approval this evening. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this townhouse project. These will not be offered for rent. They will be offered for sale. About $250,000 is the initial asking price, and so it's not going to be rentals. But up to this point, we followed the codes, the procedures, the processes. We would be happy to entertain questions on any of those items as the conversation continues. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone further?
This just sparks my mind. Ishan Vajpayee 331 Convert Lane. Is there going to be like a restrictive covenant to say that it has to all be owner occupied? Because you can sell to an LLC who rents to college kids. So maybe that's something council would want to inquire on, if that's actually going to be lived up to. So.
Thank you. So my plan here, hearing the comments from the public, and I'm going to refer to city staff. I did it out of order there. I apologize in terms, Iris, I know you know about the project, but close off the public comment, have city staff give some updates, and if there's some redundancies, that's okay, I guess, just as far as folks being informed, and then open it back up for council, if that's okay with council. Oh, did you have, I'm sorry, yeah, no, please, yes.
Thank you. Sorry for my delay. Robin Frost, 4718 Addison Drive. Just first of all, I wanted to go on record and say that I was one of the people that appears on the list of supposed recipients for that notice last March, but I did not receive it. Also, I just wanted to also go on record to say that I do oppose the change that was made to the density that's allowable in the area that's being talked about tonight. I took the liberty of starting a petition online 5 days ago to kind of gauge support. You know, do we have all of our neighbors on the same page? Are there some people who don't mind if these townhomes go up? Is it really just the people who are right there? But in 5 days, we got 156 people to sign that petition that said they oppose the townhome development that's what we're talking about this evening. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. And again, yes, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Chris Roush. I'm counsel for Panther Builders, 4834 Winghaven Drive, Waterloo. Just briefly, at about 11 o'clock this morning, I had delivered a letter on behalf of my client regarding our position in this matter. I'm not going to rehash that entire letter. I know it's each of you has received it. Hopefully I've had a chance to review it. The point that I want to make briefly are when the resolution was approved, Resolution 21,070, to approve the amended Green Hill Village Master Plan, in the resolution, the council, and these are very important words and they're very powerful words, the council deemed the resolution and the amended master plan to be in the city's best interest. Our suggestion to the council would be that nothing's changed. The amended master plan that the council deemed to be in the city's best interest is still in the city's best interest, and nothing has changed. The staff has determined that Green Hill Village Townhomes 2 preliminary plat is consistent with the development intent of this area, that the location of the two buildings meet or exceed the standards of the district, and the building height requirement of the district is satisfied. So we would suggest to the council that nothing has changed, that what the council determined by unanimous vote almost a year ago, and that my client relied upon, that it is still in the best interest of the city, the amended master plan, and when you found it to be deemed to be in the best interest of the city, we don't believe anything has changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone further? Sir?
My name is James Denny. I live at 4622 Hudson Road. I've been there 30 years, and the land behind me is what we're discussing. In 1998, 500 of us were sent letters, got a lawyer, and we talked about what we should do that's good for the city. Got a master plan, and somehow in 1998, I'm being told that it wasn't R1 when we were all watched it being voted on, and it was on the master plan. So I don't understand how all of a sudden this has changed. And he's saying here that this is all good and it was voted on. None of us knew about this. How are we represented when, we have no say in this whatsoever? Is this how everything's going to be done from now on? That nobody's notified about anything and decisions are made? Something went wrong here. And at the planning and zoning, what I heard was, the law says we don't have to tell anybody. And the last thing that was said at the meeting was another person said, well, there's nothing you can do about it anyway. That doesn't sound like a city that people, are being represented in. It's not right. So we need to go back and look at where this went wrong and be represented in the way that we should be here. My family's lived here for 80 years. And when I was 20 years old, I moved to Waterloo because I couldn't afford to live here as a young guy. And I was moved 5 times due to progress, finally bought an acreage to get away from all that. And in the end, when I was supposed to be bought out, the mayor was hiding $2 million and they had to threaten him to get it and buy us out. I couldn't wait to come back to Cedar Falls where my family and friends lived. It was just had the village mentality, everybody took care of everybody and things were done properly. And I don't want to have, people coming to my house and tell them that I'm not happy about living here anymore because things aren't being done properly. So I just want, this to be looked into before we make this decision. That's all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone further? Hearing and seeing none. Iris, have any input answer questions, whatever the case might be. If you don't have anything that's already been said, that's fine. Then just be available for council for potential questions, but I'll leave it to your expertise.
Sure. So I guess I have my presentation from P&Z and some extra notes as well about the history of not only this project, but the rezoning and the master plan. So I'm more than happy to cover that if the council would like. But I do want to touch on, if I have to choose excerpts, I guess on three things. And again, maybe before I jump into it, I'd like to get direction. Do you want me to go through? And I think it's very informative about the entire history of the site, maybe for the benefit of the public, just going through everything, or if you'd like me to kind of just, in your direction.
You can go through everything, that's fine, just so we just know there's continuity there.
Okay. So the item for today's consideration is a subdivision plat, and it's being proposed by Panther Farms LLC, and they're looking to subdivide 5.3 acres of land at the northeast corner of the Green Hill Road and Hudson Road intersection. It's the area outlined in red here on the screen. So this land is part of the 130-acre Green Hill Village development, and this item was introduced to P&Z on January 23rd, discussed at the February 13th meeting, and then was forwarded to and then unanimously approved at the February 27th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. So in the next few slides, I'll just go through, again, the project's background, then provide information also about the MU district itself, as well as the master plan updates and kind of the history with the site. So as mentioned by some of the citizens here tonight, the history really goes back to the 1990s. So in 1994 is when it really started, when the city of Cedar Falls completed a land use study to identify future commercial development areas along the Green Hill Road corridor. As a result of the study, the city recommended rezoning the now Green Hill Village property to actually PC2 first, which is planned commercial development. However, due to neighborhood comments and concerns, a second land use study was completed and resulted in the property being rezoned to MU, mixed-use residential, in 1998. With this rezoning, the first master plan for the Green Hill Village was approved, and I'll go into detail about that in the next few slides. The rezoning in 1998 included the entire area of the subdivision now being considered. It was brought to city staff's attention that it is true there is a sliver of the property in question that is shown as R1 on the county assessor's website. However, this is incorrect. The assessor generally does do a great job of representing details for cities within the Black Hawk County. Maps on their websites are visual representations of legal documents. Unfortunately, errors do occur, and on their website you will find a disclaimer. Zoning is city-based, so I urge anyone with zoning questions to contact the city directly. The ordinance's legal description of the rezoning, shown on this slide, does include the area in question, and the city's zoning maps have correctly documented this entire map area as MU. And here's a clip from a 2014 map I found just going through documents, so it has been something we have had correctly mapped as MU for a long time. City staff does regularly send the assessor updates for our mapping, and we have communicated this error with them. However, we have no control on how or when they update their site. In summary, the property under consideration to be subdivided today has been zoned MU mixed-use residential since the original rezoning in 1998. So, as noted with the rezoning of 1998, a master plan was approved that laid out the development pattern for the site and a guide for development within the Green Hill Village. The intent of the MU district is to encourage a variety of home types, neighborhood commercial uses, for the purpose of creating a viable, self-supporting neighborhood. Permitted uses range from neighborhood commercial office to single-family homes to multi-unit condominium buildings. With the intent of the district being to develop with a mixture of uses, the code states that within an approved master plan, the majority of development and developable land within the master plan be dedicated to uses other than detached single-family residential development. This means that less than 50% of the Green Hill Village plan should be used or utilized for single-family development. The original master plan on the slide depicts this. I went ahead and labeled the color-coded areas with the intended uses for those areas. In the original 1998 plan, only 9% of the total site was dedicated for single-family use, so low density, and these areas are shown in orange. So yes, from the beginning, the property in question here was originally shown as single-family, although always zoned MU. I'd like to note that what is, on the original plan on the slide, in the, sorry, jumped ahead here. So low density again is shown in orange. On the slide, I also included the definitions from 1998 for the different density types. I'd like to note that what is being proposed today is at a density of 6.4. And this is at total build-out, so 34 units for the 5.3 acres. That is on the low side of medium-density residential, which is defined by 6 to 10 units an acre, so not high density, it's low, medium density residential. In 2002, Walmart proposed to establish 200,000 square feet, a supercenter, Walmart, at the northeast corner of the Green Hill Village site. This proposal was eventually denied by City Council. After the Walmart discussion, the master plan was revisited and amended. An amended master plan was submitted and approved in 2003. In 2003, the amended master plan kept elements of the original plat, but did greatly change the residential density proportions. The master plan now showed 25% multifamily and medium-density residential as opposed to the original 45%. And the plan showed 43% single-family development as opposed to the original 9%. Based on the descriptions, I had color-coded the areas, orange being multifamily, medium density, yellow for low density, single family, red for commercial, and green for the park area. I'd like to note that the 2003 master plan continued the intent of the MU district, advocating again for mixed-use development and mixed density. The area includes an area, it doesn't really show up as B, but this land segment here. That was designated for a 12-unit luxury condominium building at 144 units total at the density of 11.3 units. So again, advocating for a mixture of uses and densities within the MU district. Since 2003, a number of areas in Green Hill Village were developed at lower densities than shown on the plan. I noted them on this slide. Areas in green are designated for either medium density or multifamily residential, but were developed as low or single family development. Orange areas note areas that were intended for either multifamily or commercial development that have developed at lower densities than what was the plan originally intended. With this development that has occurred in the Green Hill Village mixed-use district, as well as what is designated on the original master plan, so before the 2018 change, multifamily and medium density was at 36%, and low density residential was at 53%. The MU District Code notes that the majority, so less than 50% of the development and developable area in said MU District should be dedicated to uses other than single-family residential. In March of 2018, a request was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission to allow for townhome development in the red outlined area on the map. The color is not showing up, but this area here. The site was designated for single-family development and did include a corner of commercial development. The proposal showed medium-density development for this area. This proposed amendment to the master plan would bring the development percentages for single-family below the 50% mark, which is consistent with the intent of the MU district. A standard practice is to have single-family homes buffered from commercial areas by medium to high-density residential uses. The city's future land use map, the image on the right, which was adopted in 2012, closely follows the Green Hill Village 2003 Master Plan Amendment and shows the general transition that I mentioned. Orange again indicating medium-density residential. The proposed Master Plan Amendment of 2018 was consistent with the city's adopted future land use map, which showed medium-density residential in this area. It is for these reasons that staff supported the Master Plan Amendment in 2018. The amendment was unanimously approved by both the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council in April of 2018. The amendment was approved with the concept plan for townhomes. Townhomes are similar to duplexes and are essentially single-family homes attached to one another to create multiple unit buildings of 4 to 6 attached homes. The concept plan at full build-out would be 40 units and falls within the medium density definition. These types of units are similar to scale and tend to coincide well with single-family homes. They are attractive to households that do not want to maintain a large yard but still like to enjoy a similar residential character as can be found in single-family neighborhoods. The proposed layout shows tuck-under garages located to the rear of the building to create a more pedestrian-style oriented residential character along the streets. The design leaves more green space between the building and streets, which provides for a more friendly environment. The proposed scale of the buildings is similar to a 2-story home with a walkout basement. The proposed preliminary plat under consideration is the first phase of implementing this plan and goes into specifics. I'll go into specifics on the next few slides. So the question about notification has come up multiple times since this project's introduction on January 23rd. Staff fully agrees that notifying neighbors of ongoing projects in their vicinity is a best practice and a good policy. It is for this reason that even if not required by law, that staff does send courtesy mailings. Our records indicate that courtesy mailings were sent to neighboring property owners for the master plan update, this subdivision, and site plan proposal. Or for tonight, just the subdivision proposal. The general mailing radius is 300 feet from a project site. For both the master plan update and the second notice for the February 13th P&Z meeting, the mailing list was expanded well beyond that 300-foot buffer. On this slide, you will see the letter that was sent for the MP update, as well as an image showing which properties were sent the mailing list, or on that mailing list. The proposed subdivision plat follows the layout of the approved master plan and the concept plan. The preliminary plat proposes to create one buildable lot, Lot 1, outlined in red on the slide. The remainder of the site will be platted as a tract for future streets, outlots for future development, and 2 tracts for detention basins. The detention basin, outlined in blue, will be installed with the creation of Lot 1. It will collect the water runoff from the lot, and it will be oversized to help also serve the future development of those outlots in the future. A private alley will serve Lot 1, and sidewalks will be installed on the west, north, and north sides of Lot 1 and the east side of Tract B. The street connection there will not be put in at this time. It would just be when those outlots develop. So at this time, it would just be the alley. I put together an image to illustrate what the site will look like at full build-out based on the plat. Note that the proposal shows a detention basin in place of one of the 6-unit townhome buildings that was originally shown on the concept plan. It's on the far right. At full build-out, the site would have 34 units with a density of 6.4, again on the low end of medium density, the medium density definition. I'd also like to note that it's time that the developer is proposing to create just a single lot with the intent to build 2 buildings, that in the northwest corner, 1 4-unit townhome and 1 5-unit townhome. At the last P&Z Commission meeting, concerns were expressed, the last few Commission meetings, concerns were expressed about the amount of traffic that might be generated by this development. The city's engineer's office noted that depending on the circumstances, corridor constraints on urban 2-lane roadways can handle capacities up to 1,000 vehicles per hour during peak times. As previously noted, the proposed development at full build-out would have 34 townhome units. A townhome generates traffic similar to that of a single-family home. So that's about 7 trips per day for a total of 238 trips per day, and that's for total build-out. With the new street connections proposed with the subdivision, multiple travel routes, North Drive, Lloyd Lane, Addison Drive, the proposed Lauren Drive connection will be provided to nearby arterial and collector streets. Traffic generated by this development will not exceed the capacity of the existing streets. I'd also like to note that when this development was created, it was developed with the intent and original design of a mixture of uses and densities. Parking was also a noted concern for this development. The proposed plan currently provides 4 parking spots per unit, which does meet the parking requirement of 1 spot per bedroom. In addition, there is an advantage in placing all the required parking to the rear of the townhomes along a private alley. It's that it reserves the entire street frontage for parking without the interruption of multiple driveways onto the street. The layout also helps to reduce traffic congestion, as there are fewer conflict points since drivers do not need to back directly out into the street. The streets are designed to accommodate parking on both sides. I've been asked to review the legal requirements for subdivisions, review and approval process. Per Chapter 1354, and forgive me, I'm going to read directly from the slide, from Chapter 354 of the Iowa Code sets forth the legal requirements and minimum review and approval process for subdividing land. Within 60 days of a submittal of an application for subdivision, governing bodies, the City Council, must determine whether the proposed subdivision conforms to state and local requirements. If it conforms, the City Council must approve the plat. If the plat is disapproved by the City Council, the Council must state the reasons for the disapproval. The 60-day period allowed for review for this application will end on March 15th. So that's why staff turned it around quickly with the 3 readings from P&Z to be on tonight's agenda and not the standard time we usually use and have it on the next meeting, which I believe is March 18th, so after that 60-day window. I'd like to note that another preliminary plat and final plat will be required once the developer is ready to move forward with development of the other 2 outlots. At that time, the remaining sidewalk connections and streets will be put in. So again, today's consideration is just 1 lot, with the intent of two townhome buildings. The proposed preliminary plat is consistent with the approved master plan for this area and meets all city subdivision codes. The Planning and Zoning Commission and city staff recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat. And then happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Iris. So open it up for council for questions to staff.
As you mentioned, the standard practice is to have a buffer. Can you tell me on those southernmost areas, it doesn't appear there's any buffer between what's proposed in the master plan there and those homes on the back of that cul-de-sac on the map that you just showed? It looked like from their backyards, they're going to be looking at the parking lot.
Denny, can you put that back up? Thank you, if that's it.
Yeah, so generally the buffer is more transition of density. So in this case, you'd have the single-family homes, you transition into, say in this case, the townhomes, then you have the commercial directly to the north. So it's not a literal.
I was more looking for a transition of a single-family home having a backyard looking into a parking lot.
And there wouldn't be a parking lot there. It would be the driveways, the garages. But, yeah, it's.
And I'm also interested in, has there been any discussion of any compromise between the developer and the homeowners association regarding any of those lots?
I would just note that the developer and the homeowners association, they did have a good neighbor meeting where the developer offered to show what they were proposing for the site, but I don't believe there was a compromise discussed by either side at that meeting.
Do we know whether or not they're willing to meet again? What I'm wondering is if they were willing to meet again and do any compromise, I understand we'd still have to have a special meeting to hit that March 15th deadline, but I'm wondering if we were to give them time to meet, are they willing to?
I would open that up to the applicant for that development.
I'll allow the applicant to come up if there's ways there, unless you don't want to come up, applicant or representatives.
Steve Trosky, CGA. While not part of the ownership group of this project, I will state that it does meet all the codes and provisions of the preliminary plat ordinance, so we would like to move forward. At a previous Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, we did mention that there's an opportunity to plant some trees that can grow very tall. I know that may not be sufficient to the neighborhood, but those trees can be planted. But at this point, we feel that it does meet all of the city codes, and we'd like to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone further from council? Mr. Miller?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Hang on one moment, please, Mr. Cruz. You'll be next. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Somewhere along the lines, I heard something as far as conversion to rentals with this type of a townhome. Do our existing rental codes allow, I mean, with 4, and I've also heard something along the lines of these are get marketed as a 3-bedroom, but there's actually another room that could potentially become a bedroom, and from the sounds of it, there's 4 parking spots. So are there any other codes that would hinder this from these from becoming rentals?
So any property in Cedar Falls can become a rental property, even a single-family home. There's nothing in our code limiting, what property can be a rental or not. What we do have in the code are limits on occupancy. So right now, the max is for 4 adults, so 4 individuals aged 18 years or older. So I know the fear is that you'd have 2 people per room, so potential of 8 is what I've heard. But that would be against code. So if we were ever notified of that, that'd be an over-occupancy, and the person who'd be renting it would be fined or noted of that.
What's the process regarding if these are going to be converted to rentals or they don't sell? Is there a process where the city's notified?
They need to submit rental applications, so we have contact information for landlords, and there is a fee for the inspection, and we make sure everything is safe for tenants and those type of details.
Have we done any tracking regarding what else has happened in the neighborhood? I guess there's a significant change, excuse me, from a master plan in 1998 to what we're seeing today out there. So have we looked at that at all?
In terms of rentals, or?
In terms of uses, per se. On that original one, it looked like commercial was going to be something like 46%, and I'm pretty sure there's not 46% commercial. So as far as historically, have we checked out how it's actually developed, I guess, is what I'm getting.
Yes. So on one of my slides, if you pull it up again, the way it was originally designed was 25 multifamily medium density, which is medium and high density, and 43% low density or single family, and 32% commercial. So what's happened so far are those top numbers. So instead of the 25%, it's at 36 for multifamily or medium density residential, and then the low density, sorry, I'm jumping back and forth here. The low density from single family was at 43 via the master plan, but the way it currently is now with prior to the 2018 change, 53% of the land was either built as single family or reserved for single family at that time.
Mr. Cruz?
If I may, Mayor.
Oh,
Yes.
Sorry, no, hang on, Mr. Cruz.
I just wanted to make one more point to all you folks out here who didn't get a notice. It's one thing that I'm actually super proud of with staff is how many things go right, and this is absolutely unfortunate if you folks didn't receive a notice in this regard. So I, too, am kind of hopeful we can find a compromise here. So.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz?
Yes, thank you. Without the benefit of the slides that you're showing there, I wanted to ask what was described as a sliver of this project. Is it the red lot number 1 that's in our packet? Is what I think is roughly 30% of this whole project? Is that what we're describing that was misunderstood to be zoned R1?
Not exactly, but yes, it would be that area, the lot 1.
Okay. So then, in this type of mailing, or whenever there's a mailing, there should be some proof of mailing, whether it's certified mail. And to me, when a zoning change takes place, that's a significant event that there should be some proof, either on the recipient or the person mailing, that there indeed was a mailing, whether it be certified mailing receipts or postage or some way to show that there was a mailing. Is there anything that we could have from the city's point of view?
So I would say that for a rezoning, there's a requirement for notification within 300 feet, and the city sends out letter notification. We don't ever send certified mail. It's just required to mail it out. So we keep the mailing list, a copy of the letter, and usually we've outlined a map where we've sent that, particularly if we send it to a larger area than what we're required to send it to, and that meets our legal notice requirements. For this particular case, for the amendment to the master plan back in April, this was a change to a master plan by resolution, so was not rezoning the property. So there wasn't a legal requirement for letter notification in this particular case, but as Iris pointed out, we do find that it's a good public policy and good practice, and so at that time, our records show that we did send a mailing out to folks within 300 feet, in fact, a little bit larger area. So our files show a letter that we sent and a mailing list and a map of the area that we notified.
Okay. How many people are on that list by chance?
Do we know?
I don't have that number readily available.
39? 39?
39, okay. I guess my last question, if we chose to go the route of a restricted covenant, when would that be appropriate to put on these properties so that they do not become rentals?
I'm assuming that would be part of the final plat, so that'd be part of the deed dedication. I'm looking at Kevin.
Mr. Rogers, could you comment on that? That's accurate?
Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm concerned about the whole notion of restricting private property against rentals. I would be concerned about that.
Concerned to the point where it could not be done?
I would recommend against it.
Who would instigate that if that was a choice to do?
Sorry, I'm not following your question.
If would it be up to the council to ask that a restrictive covenant be put on these townhomes so that they would not become rentals?
Council could refer it to staff to study the legality of such a restrictive covenant.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Blanford?
No further questions.
Thank you.
One other question for Attorney Rogers. So Iris in her presentation mentioned that state law basically requires us to approve it, otherwise provide reasons to not approve it. Can you just go through what is allowable?
I can't hear.
Yeah.
Can you touch on Iris' presentation that discussed the requirement for local governments to approve site plans or to provide specific reasons why they are not approved, and what latitude local governments have and what they do not have?
It's hard to answer that question because I haven't heard any statement to the effect that this preliminary plat does not comply with our code of ordinances. Let me say that differently. Staff has indicated that this subdivision plat complies with our subdivision ordinance in all respects. So I'm not sure what kind of latitude council has in this regard at this point. The subject matter under consideration is a preliminary plat that I've heard staff say complies in all respects, and I haven't heard anyone say it does not.
Thank you.
Anyone further? Mr. Darrow?
First off, I want to thank Iris in particular for really giving us, I think, a very good historical understanding of how we got here. And I also want to express, after having been on planning and zoning myself for 12 years, I know the kind of work that staff has to do to present this information, so I want to thank you for that. I also want to comment on as Mark, how disappointing it is that somehow, there's no question in my mind, you did your due diligence, the notices were sent, they weren't received. And from my experience, what I miss about being on P&Z as opposed to city council is that at P&Z, there's a real opportunity for the developer, planning and zoning, city staff, and the neighbors to have an open discussion about, the project. And I personally believe, had the letters been received and the neighbors had been a part of the process, that the developers might have been able to accommodate better. And I'm hopeful that the fact that we're just tonight talking about a portion of that whole thing, that perhaps there's still a chance for some kind of
Excuse me for interrupting.
compromise.
I'm having a hard time hearing who.
Well, I'm sorry, Dave. This is how I talk, but I'll yell into the phone. Sorry, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now I forgot what I was going to say, but shoot, I was on a roll too.
Only 2 buildings, and preliminary plat is only what we're considering tonight.
Right.
And there's other
Right.
site plans.
So there's still perhaps an opportunity for that kind of discussion. But as a council, again, staff has done a great job of demonstrating a couple things. This proposal is still very true to the original design that was done 25 years ago. It's a mixed-use development. But from my perspective, it's a far less mixed use than it was originally. There's a lot more single-family homes there now than there were in the original proposal. What happens over time, as developers come along, things get changed, there's meetings, and all of a sudden, we're where we are now. What didn't happen was that dialogue between the developer and the neighbors. I think as a council, we're compelled to approve this proposal. But what I would hope is, if this is just an initial part of a larger proposal, further discussion, bigger trees. Really, I don't think laughing at planting trees is necessarily fair either. I think there is an appreciation on the part of the developer that they need to accommodate you. But they've accommodated the city, what our expectations were, and what happened was the mail service didn't deliver the letters. And I'm sorry about that, but I don't know what we as a council can do differently. So, but I hope the developers might think about this, and if this initial proposal moves through, is there still a chance to do something else to demonstrate to the neighbors that they're still in the right town? That we are a community that hears their concerns and wants to make their living situation the best it can be. So anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you heard all that, Dave.
I got most of it.
Thank you, Mr. Dara. Anyone else from council? Mr. Green?
So looking at this this vote, it's a really tough one because I can see both sides very clearly. And I did go through over the weekend, looked at the original meetings that were taking place last year back in March and in April, and where it says that it was unanimous for the vote for when the council voted on it back in April of last year. If I had known that residents weren't aware of the meeting or of the meeting taking place, I might have voted differently. Where we're at now tonight, though, is looking at how this is laid out, and from seeing the interviews or the public speaking that occurred in the last couple of weeks through planning and zoning, and then tonight, I can't say that my view would be any different for whether or not this should be single family versus switching to townhomes. So I do feel that even though we don't have a legal requirement, we've developed this expectation that we'll notify residents, and we should live up to that. So that's, just wanted to say that piece, that it's, understand what a difficult decision it is, and that the due process side, to me, is what is the most important aspect of being able to show that we respect that.
Thank you. Anyone further from council? Mr. Boer?
I just want to repeat that I'm extremely disappointed that the developer's not willing to meet with the residents again to see what compromise they can make, and I would urge, if this passes, before the next portion of the plat comes forward for the buildings on the southern portion of this, to please try to work with the residents and see if you can find something that is compatible with their homes and their properties.
Thank you.
Mayor Brown, just a question or a comment, that approving this preliminary plat, we still have a final plat and site plans to approve as well. So there are significant opportunities to have that compromise still.
Correct. Is that correct, staff? I mean, there's going to be more opportunities to consider.
There certainly will be in the future preliminary plat and final plat. With an approval of a preliminary plat, if a final plat comes in that's consistent with that preliminary plat, then it's considered approvable. So certainly the developer could change their mind and decide to change something, but if they bring in a final plat, that would need to be approved according to that preliminary plat that was approved. But once again, this is just for a plat that's just for the one lot, and any future we'll have to come back for another preliminary and final plat for any future of those outlots to be developed.
Any further comments from Mr. Wieland or Mr. Cruz?
No,
Mr.
Whelan,
Mayor.
Did you catch
Go
that?
ahead, Dave.
You're okay? Both of you are okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I had a number of questions, but as the discussion's gone on, they've all been answered by other councils, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blanford, did you have a?
I share Councilman Green's frustration because our staff does an excellent job of communicating with residents, and I think that's been a help to us in the past. So I share that frustration, and I'm equally as frustrated that, based on what Attorney Rogers is telling us, that we have essentially no latitude here, which frustrates me from a local government perspective. I would prefer that we are able to control site plans in our own backyard, essentially. So I'm frustrated that we have no latitude there either, but I echo Councilwoman DeBur's point that I hope we can come with some kind of compromise before future site plans are approved.
Thank you. Anything further? There's a motion and a second on the table. This requires a roll call vote, please.
Cruz votes no.
I'm sorry, Cruz was a no, and Wieland?
Aye.
Aye.
5 voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That motion does carry. Moving on to the next item, I believe is item 21. That was a resolution setting March 18th, 2019 as the date of public hearing on the proposed rezoning of property located at the southeast corner of West 12th Street and Union Road. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Open it up for discussion or questions from council.
Understanding that this is just a public hearing, I was hoping for some staff background on changing from a greenway and a floodplain zoning, but I assume that can happen at the public hearing.
Indeed. This would be if you have concerns with the date.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anything further from council? This requires a roll call vote, please.
Whelan, aye.
Cruz, aye.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 24, I believe. Is there a motion to approve bills and payroll?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Requires a roll call vote, please.
Cruz votes aye.
Whelan, aye.
I'm voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next item is City Council referrals. Does council have any items up for referral this evening? Hearing and seeing none, any council updates? Hearing and seeing none, I know Director Olson has a couple updates in relation to some training and ISO statements. Updates.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you briefly about some training that's occurred within the Public Safety Department, and just talk briefly upon the ISO process. And then we had a fire today. I'd just like to give you a brief update on that. So we recently completed a class, a firefighter academy class as we call it, of 10 individuals. 8 of them are new hires. 2 of them were police officers that signed up for the PSO program. And that program was a 5-week classroom and skills training program, including that 44-page skills manual that you've recently heard me talk about. And that class went very well, and so soon we'll have 10 more public safety officers that will be available to respond to police and fire calls. And I want to let you know, as we're reviewing some of our 2018 statistics and things that we've done last year, I just wanted to share with you that we completed 11,000 hours of training in the fire division. That doesn't include EMS. A lot of that was fire suppression, which includes a live house fire using that Waterloo Regional Training Facility, which is live fire training. They have a structure in which they set fires inside. We have a portable burn house that came from the state, which is an interior live fire training. We also had a tanker trailer type simulator that came in and was live fire training as well. Also, parts of that would include Jaws of Life, river rescue, ice rescue, trench rescue, and things of that sort. Police completed over 8,000 hours of training last year, and I do have a real short video just to show you, and I'll narrate a little about this video when David gets it. There you go. This is fast motion, but part of this is the Class of 10, and part of what they do is they're given 1 minute to put on all their gear, and then an additional minute to put on their SCB, their air tanks, and all that. And that's part of the requirement that they need to complete with that firefighter skills testing that they do for the state as part of their certification for Firefighter 1. And so we got to make sure they're all able to do that. And you can see that's, of course, in a fast pace. Okay, so this is a simulation of a collapsed building in which a firefighter needs to push their way through that collapsed building. And it is so tight in there that you can see they have to take their air tank off and push it through there as they go through. There's also wires in there. This is some training that's including the Jaws of Life and training that occurred where they practice and train on the Jaws of Life with with different cars that were donated by Ike Salvage. And then, of course, this is some fire training that they do. This is some car fire training that we do. And then
I'm losing his voice. Can he speak into the mic?
Okay, I certainly can.
Thank you.
And then this is a house fire training that we did as well, in which we had a house that was going to be demolished, and we go inside and do some live fire training, and then ultimately we end up burning it down. So this is some of the training that we've done last year. And as you can see, some of this is very realistic and is something that they'll be required to do throughout the course of a year. And so next I just talk about the ISO rating. So we completed some materials and we sent it in to ISO. I would imagine in a number of weeks we'll get our ISO rating back. Whether it will be a 3 or a 4, I don't know. We were 4 for a number of years, and then we dropped to a 3 on our last evaluation. We're evaluated about every 5 years. So we'll walk out of this either at a 3 or 4. I just simply don't know which it'll be, and we'll find out soon enough. But either way, whether we're a 3 or 4, we'll be in the top 25% of fire departments in the United States. So whether we're 3 or 4, we'll be in the top 25%. And then I just want to talk briefly about a fire that we had today. And the reason I want to talk to you about that is some of the responses of personnel that we're getting during some of these fires. So we had a call, an individual was working on his home upstairs, and some insulation, as a result of what he was doing, some insulation started on fire. He tried to put that insulation out himself, but he wasn't able to do that, so he called. We had 16 firefighters and public safety officers working at the time of that call, so we had a significant response. Now, we did a callback as well because we knew this would be what I call a longer-term scenario, so we're going to be at the scene for more than just 10, 20, 30 minutes. Excuse me. So what we do is a callback. A callback is done for a couple of different reasons. One is to get more people at the scene, because when you go in, you have an air tank on and you go in, you're going to run out of air, you come out, a new group goes in and continues with that firefighting. So you have to have enough people to keep that rotation going. and, to give people breaks as well, because it's a pretty labor-intensive activity. What we also want to do is staff another truck, because if we get another call, we want to have a truck available to respond to those calls. And, of course, sometimes at all fires now, we have public safety officers that also contribute, that arrive in squad cars. So we want to replenish those squad cars and get those police patrol out there. But today, and I don't have the final numbers exactly, because when I last looked, the fire report was not complete, but I think we had somewhere, after doing the callback, somewhere between 25 and 30 firefighters and public safety officers that responded to this call. So we had great numbers there, which is similar to the number of people we had at a fire we had a month ago. We had 17 public safety officers and firefighters working at the time, and we ended up with 31 after we did the callback there, so we had some great responses to there. So what we're doing is we're starting to see really this model starting to pay back with a number of public safety officers we've added. So it's working quite well. I would like to add, I did mention that we staff another truck. So at that fire we had a month ago, we actually had an auto accident, which we had had to have firefighters respond to due to fluid spill. So even though we've got an active fire and we got a lot of people at that scene, we still have another truck and police officers available to respond to other calls as needed. Thank you.
I don't mean to pick on you, Director, but I know from the meeting last week, Council approved the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding with the Cedar Falls Police Department Teamsters Union, and I just wanted you to update what that means in terms of moving the public safety model forward.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of confusion out there as to exactly how all of this works. It's funny, we've even had questions asked of us as, why are the police driving around in fire trucks on patrol? That's not what's occurring. We get some people that are really confused and don't understand how this model works. But yeah, so the police union unanimously voted to adopt a 24-hour schedule in the Teamsters contract. The Teamsters is the union that represents the police and public safety officers. So that allowed us to move public safety officers to the fire shifts to be permanent firefighters on the 24-hour rotation that the firefighters work. And we needed that language in that contract, otherwise we'd have to pay overtime at anything over 8 hours. And fireworks a different, unique schedule that's 24 hours and then some days off and another 24 hours. But you have to have the language in the contract. So we were able to get that, and that was actually, if I didn't say that, a unanimous vote by the Teamsters Union to do that. And now we have the opportunity to move 4 public safety officers to the fire shift permanently, which we're in the process of doing this week. Now we also, of course, if you remember back in October, we moved 4 public safety officers to the fire shifts. So some people may say, no, wait a minute, you did that back in October, but those were supervisory level individuals, so they're not, that contract doesn't apply to them. So we're able to move them. But we really needed the ability to move public safety officers to the fire shift, and those are the public safety officers are volunteers. So we've had several that have volunteered to do that. So that worked out quite well. And I might add, too, that, it's probably almost 5 years ago that the Teamsters voted to accept and approve that public safety officer job classification in order to create that job class. And that was quite a number of years ago. So the police union has shown some support for this model and is now, I think, working out much better as we move on.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Miller.
Mr. Olson, regarding the callbacks, again, and I think you might have clarified this, but when we're giving those totals out, that isn't everybody at the scene. That's a total number of people available to respond to any incident.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I do need to clarify that because some people are going to think, did you have 30 firefighters at the fire scene? No, we did not, because we're going to leave 3 or 4 at the fire station to staff another truck, and we may put some on patrol, or we may have plenty. We have more than we need at the scene, so they'll all just stay at the fire station and just stand by in case we have some other need. For example, sometimes you can start running, you have air tanks, and as you run out of air tanks, you either got to refill them. If you start running out, you got to refill them. So you may want to shuttle some back to the station, or you have a truck that you can refill them at the scene. So there's just different considerations. But when the people come in, we don't always send them all to the fire scene because they're not all needed.
Historically, do you see those kind of numbers for callbacks?
Oh, no, we would never, because in the past, you would have anywhere from 30 to maybe 35 firefighters in your entire fire department. And now with the addition of the public safety model, you've got, I think we're in the fifth, fully trained. I know we're at least in the 40s, and we're approaching 50, if not into the 50s, and we'll be easily into the 50s once we get everybody fully trained. So that allows us, when we do our callbacks, to receive considerably more people coming back when we have those callbacks. And that's why you're seeing these large numbers now.
One more question, if I may. Firefighters have the opportunity to join into the PSO program, correct? I've heard the question a couple times this week, and I think there's some confusion out there that isn't an opportunity they have.
That is an opportunity that they have. They can, I would say most of them, if not all of them, would meet the job classification criteria, and they would just simply have to go through the, there's two classifications for police officer. One's a police officer, certified police officer. One's a reserve level. To become a public safety officer, you'd have to go through the full classification, which means they go to the academy, but they could do it just the same as anyone else. Now, we do have had 3 firefighters that went to the reserve officer classification and helped the police department out on typically weekends, during the summer, during some of the special events, and then during the weekend evenings to help out the patrol shifts. But 3 of them have voluntarily trained to that level, and they do get compensated for that.
Sorry to keep you talking.
Thank you, Director Olson.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
may I ask
please.
a question?
Yes.
Me?
Yes, Mr. Cruz.
Okay. If a firefighter chooses to train to be a PSO, do they qualify for 11%?
Yes, they do.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item is a public forum. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? Ms. Pop, we'll get to you, Mr. Weiner. Ms. Pop.
Good evening. My name is Penny Pop. I live at 4805 South Main Street. I had a chance to watch the special council meeting that was held just a few days ago, and one item that stuck out to me was, is the people's voice really being heard? It stayed with me. So I looked back at the city council minutes for the year 2018 and found some interesting information. The shortest city council meeting lasted 9 minutes and included 1 public forum speaker. The longest, 202 minutes, with a short break. These times reflect the public portion of the council meeting and do not include executive session. I looked at the longest meetings of the year, and just a few jumped out at me. These are the top contenders. April 2nd, 2018, 202 minutes, and the hot topic, Quick Star. November 5th, 154 minutes, and the hot topic, PSO program. February 5th, 135 minutes, and the hot topic, College Hill projects. February 19th, 135 minutes, and the hot topics, Fairway, Quick Star, and College Hill projects. March 19th saw 123 minutes, and the hot topic, Quick Star. October 1st, there was a 106-minute meeting, and that hot topic, urban chickens. So if these were the hot topics of the year, let's take a look at how many folks came out and spoke. The public voice. April 2nd, 23 folks came up and spoke to you folks. On November 5th, 23 more folks came up and spoke. February 5th, 10 people spoke. February 19th, 21 people spoke. March 19th, 11 folks spoke. October 1st, 5 folks came up, but I will note that at this meeting, most of the time was spent on council discussion of urban chickens. Now, as I went through the year, I tallied up the number of folks who actually spoke, the public's voice. 150 of our neighbors actually came up and spoke before council. I will admit that a few folks are what you would consider repeat offenders and speak out quite often. If you count the over 500 neighbors who signed petitions and chose to speak through one or two people, realistically, the number could be closer to 650, 700, or even more. I also need to note that one set of minutes were not found on the city's website and could not be tallied. So let's review. Hot topics for the year 2018 based on minutes and time spent at council meetings: Quick Star, PSO program, College Hill projects, urban chickens. Now, was the public involved? Yes. Was there council action on the hot topics and matters important to me and my neighbors in Cedar Falls? Well, here's where it gets a wee bit tricky. Personally, I would have liked to hear our council's stance on the arrest of a current council member on an OWI charge. Our council is our voice. I hold them to a higher standard in behavior and actions. But yet, this was swept under the rug and never addressed. These actions and behavior must be acceptable to the city, not to me. But the bigger question remains: did the Cedar Falls City Council represent your public voice? And I think I'm just going to leave it there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council to each other or staff?
Yeah, if I may.
Mr. Miller.
I could appreciate your take on that, Ms. Pop. I don't feel in any way, shape, or form that this council swept my actions under the rug. I'm sure you probably read a Courier article where I fully accepted what I had done, and it was...
Oh, you may have a seat up front if you'd like.
I would love to have a seat up front.
The implication that this council swept anything under the rug is absolutely not true. And for the rest of your, and I guess furthermore, that was an absolutely embarrassing moment in my life that I've taken full responsibility for. I don't expect this council to take responsibility for that. And I guess if there's some other action that needs to be taken there, then there's an opportunity to do that. But regarding the rest of your comments, it's everybody's responsibility to be involved, and the numbers of people that are here, I think we do a very good job trying to represent the people in this community. And I urge you to step up here and run for council as well if you can do a better job.
Anything further from council? Previous speaker?
Mayor, may I have a chance?
No, you may not. You may have a seat, please. Public comment is over, Ms. Pop. You may have a seat.
I think it's very rude that it took
Ms.
council 6 months to address
Ms.
this
Pop.
issue.
Ms.
and
Pop
to
does
offer
not
an
have the right
apology.
to
You are
debate.
totally out of order. Anyone else to speak to? Mr. Wingert, I saw you raise your hand.
Brian Wingert, 2110 Flynn Drive, Cedar Falls. I'm the developer on the Green Hill Village townhome project. On behalf of Mr. Miller, everybody makes mistakes. Given unanimous approval from both bodies, Planning and Zoning, City Council, we've spent countless, and I mean countless, we're going on 2 years now, hours and resources on this project. And going back to the drawing board, having discussion with the homeowners is off the table anymore. We've gone 2 years of resources, time, money, and we no longer financially have an option to do that. There's too much money involved that we've spent based on your guys' recommendation to us to move forward and spend that money responsibly. That now coming back, it just doesn't seem, I know it's not fair to them either. If they don't think that they got those notices, that's fine. It's not fair to them, it's not fair to us. We are here now, though, with a project that fits what you guys are looking for. You know, and maybe it would be good practice if you do have a project within your ward, to go talk to your people before you make a vote, instead of putting that blame on us. Again, I don't think it's fair. Another point that came up was rentals. And I know that everybody's concerned with rentals in this community. I feel this price point being, and it was stated incorrectly, it's probably not going to be $250,000. It'll probably be closer to $230,000. But that puts, in my opinion, and I deal in real estate every single day, somebody to purchase that at that price point would not be a sound investment. It is not a financially good move, in my opinion. But then again, you might think that I have bias on this project, whatever. But with this price point, we are well within the average home price within this neighborhood. There are houses that are condos that are $140,000 in this neighborhood, and there are houses with some of the people that are speaking, and I understand, that are close to, if not over, $400,000. So we are well within the average price point of that neighborhood, and I just don't think that a rental property in that price point today, maybe in the future, but today is a sound investment for anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingert. I'll open up council questions to each other, staff, previous speaker. Anyone further for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.